Okay, so this is James with Allied Complete Furnace and AC Repair out of Kenmore, Washington. I am based near Seattle, and I'm here today to add a supplement to the original video, the right way to install flex duct. If you look at my previous video, I went in detail for, excuse me, I talked in detail about how to properly connect a flex duct up to a, in this case, a register boot, but up to any kind of metal snap lock pipe, the proper way to connect it. As I mentioned before in the video, it's very, very important not to use tape. Tapes will come apart after 10 or 20 years. The proper way to do it, just to recap, is to apply sealant around the connection, slide your flex duct up and over the fitting, use a heavy nylon tie, then use the tool to tie that down as hard as possible, and then finally use another tie to connect the insulation so it doesn't come off. This is a supplement to that video. The next concern that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention was how to properly connect a register boot to the floor. The common practice, even today, even on brand new homes, is to just go ahead and cut a rectangular hole through the floor. Usually it's a 4x10, sometimes a 4x12 hole, and then slide your boot up and into the floor, and then do whatever you have to adhere to the floor. Maybe drive some screws or nails to the side of the boot to connect it to the floor. Now, after the home is finished off and you got the carpet down or whatever kind of flooring down, the mechanical contractor usually comes back and installs those register diffusers on top of the boot to give you a nice looking appearance at the very end, a nice finished product. Now, the concern that I have, however, and I want all of you to really focus and pay attention to this, is that you see, between the register boot and the floor, there's always a little bit of a gap somewhere. I mean, it's going to happen no matter what. Even when you try to screw it in, there's always some air gaps here and there around the floor, between the floor and the register boot. Now try to imagine when you have that register diffuser on top, that's going to go ahead and create an air restriction. It's not going to allow a full flow of air through this system anymore. It's going to create a partial restriction. Now, if that causes a restriction, obviously the air is going to go to the path of least resistance, in which case it's going to be forced back and come out back into the crawl space. In this case, it's going to leak between the boot and the between the wood floor and the boot, and allow warm air just to come down and then into the crawl space. Now, the reason why I bring all this to everyone's attention is because not only is this a significant source of air leakage, which is prevalent in most homes, but on top of that, the method that we use for checking for duct leakage would not pick up and detect this problem. Typically, when an HVAC mechanical contractor ducts a house and they go to do a duct leakage test in order to make sure that it'll pass inspection, what they'll do is they'll put masking tape over the return air grills, and then they'll take the diffuser off, and then they'll shove a piece of foam all the way down this register can and into the flex duct. A piece of foam like a pillow or something like that to create a blockage. That way they can then pressurize the duct up to like 25 or 50 pascals and determine what their leakage rate is. That test, which is the test that's approved by the manufacturers, by code, by the inspectors, is not going to pick up on this significant problem that I've just brought to your attention. It will not pick up on that, and people are going to think that their air ducts are not leaking, when in fact there's a very good chance that 10 or 20% of the air is leaking back down into the crawl space through these gaps. So this is a significant source of energy loss which needs to be resolved. Now, as a professional contractor, in my opinion, the best way to resolve this problem is to go ahead and use products like this. This is spray foam. I buy this stuff online. This is made by a company called Rip and Go. They make a kit here, which is a two-step kit. It uses, a white and red cylinder, two chemical compounds which mix together. There's a hose that connects to each one. It comes together to this gun right here. Now this gun, takes both chemical compounds as it mixes through. This nozzle here mixes the two agents together as it sprays out the front. It's a really easy system to use. One thing I like about this is there's a trigger lock here so you don't accidentally spray foam when you're dragging this thing around the crawl space. That's a nice feature to have. It's really simple to use. You just aim it where you want, and then you pull the trigger, and it's going to go ahead and spray foam over anything you want. Now, some things to keep in mind here is this spray foam agent, unlike that stuff you buy at hardware stores, those cans that are about $4, this stuff cures pretty quick. The stuff that you get at the hardware store typically takes a half hour to an hour to get really nice and hard and cure. This stuff, on the other hand, will cure in just a couple of minutes. So it's important to keep that in mind, because as you're spraying this, I hate to go through a lot of nozzles, so what I do is I usually, like after a minute, if I haven't gotten crawled up to my next register boot that I want to spray, I'll usually, aim this thing at something and just, shoot a little bit of spray foam just to clear the nozzles. That way the stuff doesn't get hard inside my nozzle and I don't go through a million of them. So keep that in mind as you're using this compound. So as I go ahead and spray my boot here in order to air seal this thing completely and also to insulate it, what I'm going to focus on here is, covering all the metal, and also in order to insulate the metal, because obviously we don't want the heat that's going through these ducts here just to radiate through the sheet metal. So we want to spray it all with foam to insulate it. We want to get to an R8. That's what's code. And primarily, we want to focus on these cracks in between the wood and the metal. We want to completely seal that off. And then thirdly and lastly, there's a couple places where there's seams. As you can see, I've already coated it a lot with duct sealant. I go through gallons and gallons of duct sealant when I do jobs like these because I want no leaks anywhere. But, if I see any more seams, I'll certainly spray that with the foam. The foam will resolve that too and completely air seal it. And so those are the things we're going to focus on here. Now I'm going to go and start spraying. You guys can just see how easy this is to use. I'm going to start over in this corner here. Oh, take off my sugar lock. Okay, so here I go. So you can see it goes in easy. Now I'm only using the trigger about halfway. This stuff has quite a bit of force. Filling all that gap up perfectly. Just to keep in mind too, this stuff's going to continue to expand for like the next minute, so don't just spray it an inch thick at first. Do about a ½ inch thick, and then it'll expand another ½ inch. So I'm going to continue on here. Again, I'm only using the trigger about halfway. All right, I've coated that side really good. Let's go over to the other side. As you can see, this particular boot is up against a joist here, so I'm just going to go and seal it right between the boot and the joist. Here's another nice big gap in here. We're going to seal that off. And let's see here. We're just going to spray that off really hard right there. Like I said, this stuff has quite a bit of force behind it. It's unlike the cans. This stuff you can really rip a lot of foam out if you need to. I'm just trying to be a little bit more careful. Make sure it goes on evenly. Okay, that is sealed off. Is there another gap under here I want to get? Yeah. All right, so that's sealed up. So there's a little place right there I can get. So I'm going to lock my trigger here again. So now this thing is completely coated in foam. That was not hard. That took less than a minute to spray this whole thing down. What's happening now, I'm actually, as I'm watching this, I don't know if you can tell, but the foam is continuing to expand. Now that register boot is, I don't care what you say, that thing is 100% airtight now. Or very close thereabouts. It's completely encased in foam. It's airtight. It's also insulated now. And most importantly, the connection between the boot and the floor is 100% airtight too. It's sealed. The register boot is completely sealed to the floor. So now, when you think about it, when the register diffuser is on top, there's no way now that the air is going to somehow push back down and cause a energy loss there. Doing this procedure on all of the boots in the whole house, man, that's going to save at least $100 a year, I'll bet, for the client. It's going to cut their leakage rate down by several hundred CFMs. And anyway, it's a really smart thing to do. The cost to do this as well, as you can see, it was not hard to do. I mean, this kit of foam here does cost about $200 to $300, but it'll usually handle at least 2 houses. So it's not an awfully expensive thing to do. It's not hard. It'll definitely pay for itself within a few years. So this is definitely something I think most clients will be interested in having done in order to reduce their utility bills during the wintertime. So anyway, I hope that information is helpful. I definitely think that this is a procedure which should be standard on all new construction. If you guys want to have any further questions, my phone number is 206-604-0092. Again, my name is James. I'm the owner of Allied Furnace and AC Repair. And yeah, if you're interested in having this done in order to reduce your home's heat loss, I'd be happy to service your home. As you can see here, with Allied, we're very, very detail-oriented. You can rest assured if you use Allied, you'll get a competitive price. You'll also see that our work is extremely detail-oriented, and you'll definitely notice a huge difference with the quality of our work compared to other installers. And this is James signing out.